Hello. I always try and start these things with like at least 20 seconds of silence and breathing because I've said this 100 times. I am not scripted. So I might be thinking something at, guess what? Washing the dishes. Haven't I said that a million times? Um, well, first of all, is the lighting any better? Because I have like probably like 16 uh, lamps stuck in my bathroom. So I just keep trying to get it brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And I also obviously moved it closer this time because this whole kind of wriggling around on the corner of a counter is not working for me. Probably wasn't working for you either. So anyway, how are you doing? How was your day? You can't answer that. Please feel free to, email me, or literally text me if you, I don't know, if you want, like, if you have a question or whatever. My phone number and my email, Sean566 at Gmail, are on my Facebook page in the profile. So I deliberately from day one like put that in there because that's just my gig. Um, I like to talk to people, make new friends. Um, so anyway, so that was my day. How was your day? uh, what? I don't even. Anyway, it doesn't. If I can't remember it, it's not that significant. And it was just I don't know a lot of humdrum paperwork and chores. I think. If I think of anything interesting today, I'll let you know later. So I really am trying not to keep these things like an hour long. They are tending to be an hour long if I think of a lot of stuff to share with you guys. But anyway, so it kind of forces me to like jump right in. So let's jump right in. I left obviously a teaser. I tend to send out a teaser early in the day because number one, some people may want to see it right away, and they can work it around their schedule because it's taped. Like I said in the teaser, I think I'm gonna like I don't know explore live, and then do teasers on live shows and see. I don't know. Does that give you like a threat? If you do it a live, do you have that ability to see people like commenting? I don't know, whatever. I will ask my 26-year-old Samsung, and oh, it'll tell me, right? Hasn't told me before anything. I just have to like kind of dig around and punch things and then read things and then hope that I don't get some wall that blocks me out of life. So I mentioned that the shows, I mean, I'm like enjoying them and I'm liking them, but they are like kind of swinging all over the place, because first one was just sort of like a straight out introduction. Here I am. I look orange. I have Vaseline all over my camera. If you've seen the first pilot, that's what it looks like. So hence the lights and my son saying, "What the f, man? You've got a broken like screensaver. I mean, whatever screen protector." And then suddenly he took it off, and suddenly look, everything's crystal clear. So I mentioned, it's not like inconsistencies. I just don't. People are always telling me you're too much and you're over the top. So I don't know, maybe I need to mellow out or whatever. I know the first episode was, chill. Anyway, this is what I do. I get sidetracked. So I mentioned that I wanted to give additional information on our whole ET episode last night. And I stopped at like basically where the movie ended, where I was like, shock and awe about spending hours with the technicians Rimaldi's Maestro Rimaldi and his crew. were kind of the last things that I was just like agog, just like, oh, the movie's coming to an end. This is like way fascinating. We're realizing this is just not more, that is more than just a kids movie. So I'm just like grooving. I'm like, wow, wow, look at all this technology and all this, and the honor to meet the people that were behind the technology, which Caprice worked very closely with, actually, who gave us the beautiful unparalleled hand miming and acting. So it ended, right? And so, whatever. And, post-production doesn't really involve us. It does, because the stuff that we did at ILM, which I'll make a whole show about, I'm going to just get that to you before a book, because there's way things I saw up there, and there's way things left up there about ET, which is hard to explain, so I'll tell you another time. So after that, of course, there's the big premiere, and then the lines for miles, and so wait, this is really weird. Let me just interject this. I was offered a pre-screen of the premiere, like days before. Like I think Drew was allowed one, and we're talking like an empty theater as a courtesy. So I think she had one, and then I was offered one. And literally, you go in, you sit in the Cinerama Dome by yourself, and like maybe two other celebrities, and you get to see the movie. And then there's like the 17-mile long lines. And guess what? The day that I had that like slip me in and watch it quick and get out of there alone, guess who I was walking in with and chatting with, and then not sitting next to each other? Shirley MacLaine. And Shirley MacLaine has a daughter named Sachiko. And wow, there's a love story behind that, because my mentor, best friend, surrogate mother, knew the daughter, and then there was a conversation about all that. Who cares? So that was the first time, theater, right? Okay. So then there's, of course, the big premiere, which I don't know if it's on tape, probably not on YouTube, but it was big. They took over the entire lot of Cinerama Dome to have this tented premiere, biggest tent I ever seen, and I've seen some big ass tents. So it's just like extravaganza. And well, first the movie's playing, everybody's crying every time. It's the first time anyone has ever seen it, and Olivia Newton-John was sitting right in front of me. And when the movie was over, everyone was moved. Excuse me. And she looked back at me, and she did this with the sweetest little wink. And of course, I've never forgotten that. Then I forgot to tell you also the last conversation I had with Stephen doing ET. He came up to me, I think I mentioned that, and he said, Sean, he said, sensational work. So again, another thing I've never forgotten. So premiere ends, like Olivia Newton-John. Irony, another irony. I had been a guest star on what was called a special Olivia Newton-John. Usually it would be like Olivia Newton-John special. And I actually had a featured part as like a fake relative of hers from Australia on a video type call, which didn't exist then. And I was on her variety show with Linda Carter, and all those, 70s, late 70s stars, Wonder Woman, whatever. So that was cool. And it was ironic because she's giving me the wink of a lifetime, and I felt like saying, hey, I played your nephew in that, variety special in 1977. Whatever. Stupid. So movie ends, we all like pile into the tents, and it's the one opportunity for you to say, hey Stephen, gosh, that was great, 10th time. And so you're there with your dates, your families, your whatever. I had two sets. I didn't come with my mother and my stepfather for very, very good reasons, which you will read extensively in my book. So that was that meeting with Stephen. And just to give you an example, my stepfather was, of course, the first thing that he had to say about the film was that why, if he can fly at the end or in the street, why didn't he fly like when they were first trying to catch him? Whatever. Thank you. Anyway, the set of people that I came with was my father, his date, who is an actress named Susan Hubley. You probably not remember him. I'm not playing into this over 40 set, under 40 set. This is not the show for that. Whatever the demographics say, I don't know, but whatever. Anyway, so they weren't dating. It was just a lovely little friendship that it was nice to come to my premiere. And she's a lovely woman. I haven't seen her in 100 years. And she is a brilliant actress. She co-starred in a film called Hardcore, which was a very devastating film, 1978, 79, whatever. And it's a very heavy subject matter, and this is off topic, but she plays a lady of the evening in the extreme type of lady of the evening who ends up helping George C. Scott find his daughter who has been swallowed up by that industry, and helps him find his daughter and bring her home and have closure. And guess what? Susan Hubley's character just gets stuck in the same old place where she was found doing the same old thing, which is the oldest profession in the world. So that was the nice group. That was the cool group. Because it was my dad, Susan, me, and my girlfriend, and the inseparable entity of three at the time. She was, with me. Thank God. Because she was also the rap party that we were practically hiding away from everybody because it was awkward. And then they started showing these blooper reels or whatever, and we just kind of split. I wanted to go hear Grace Jones' new album. Anyway, so that was really it. I had a lovely introduction, to Susan, to my father, to Chloe, and that was really about it. Big, wild, memorable, nice for the most part. Then my girlfriend, Chloe, and my dad and Susan went to Dantana's, which is, just Google Dantana's. So that was the tail end of really the whole ET hour-long, mass. Last night. And listen, ET is never off limits. And let me tell you something. You may come to think we're what else can you say about ET? And lots and lots. Sean has a memory like an elephant. There was quite a bit of time on that set, and there was quite a bit of time on lots of other sets, and there was quite memorable times, which you can read about in the book, and which I talked about the other night, which was way TMI. I am sorry to come out of a hat on you about such a devastating topic. It was real quick. It reminds me kind of a rule of thumb in psychosocial services, human services, whatever you want to call it, psychotherapy. I am not a doctor, but you tend not to. There's two schools of thought about giving people very devastating information, such as somebody has died. My school of thought is you need to warm that person up to the shock. No matter if anyone thinks you're procrastinating or delaying it or torturing them by not telling them, you have got to warm that person up to the very idea, or they could very well short circuit just by you just completely blurting. That has been my experience as a social worker, and I have seen it work flawlessly. The other school of thought is you got to let them know right out of the gate. I mean, they owe, you owe it to them. They deserve to hear it. Just get to it. Let them know. Well, no. And I've worked with corporations. I've worked, I was making six-figure salaries for 12 years at a corporation, which I crumbled because I was doing the work of 1,200 people, and I was given 3 divisions, one of which I created from the ground up. Bitter. This sounds stupid and has nothing to do with what I wanted to talk about tonight. So ET kind of wrapped up, but then there's like a ton of post ET, post, because we're talking 45 years of post ET basically. And there's the phase of like the massive amounts of fan mail that I got from only Tokyo in Japan. Nothing. Dig that. I got one letter in 45 years, official fan letter. I mean, traditional fan letter from the States. Lovely. But then I got like 2 boxes of fan mail from Japan. And some of them like made you want to cry. It's like, you're my sweet lover, boyfriend that I have dreamed of forever to marry and whatever. And you're like, whoa, wait. There's nothing wrong with that, but hey, I'm 15 and as Mommy Dura said, oh, not directed at her, but it's like, wow, I want to cry, but I am not your 13-year-old boyfriend, and you're never going to know it, and I let you love me. And I sent pictures, of course, since day one. I do anything I possibly can for anyone that is enamored of the film or appreciative of my performance. Day one, you tell me when I didn't do it. So that's the ET stuff, right? We flowed through that. We flowed through how the day went. I talked a little bit about switching gears, like family stuff. I was thinking about like, I lost my parents relatively recently. So does, 500 billion other people. And I'm just one, and it's essentially, a different experience for everybody. So what's unique about me not having that? But I do have family though. I have family in Ireland because my mother was born in an Irish village. So basically everybody on that side is like full Irish, and they're over there. A couple of lovely ones here, but it's all over there. And Irish culture is very clannish. You find that in Scotland. You do not find that necessarily in the United Kingdom, and you definitely find it in Ireland. So anyway, lots of dwindling relatives in Ireland, a couple of gems over here in the States, all full Irish, because even the here States ones are full Irish. And then there's my dad, Midwest, Iowa. I hate to bring this up prematurely because I wanted to talk about lovely family stuff, but since I said Iowa and I said my father, there has been films, and chronicles of my father, Wikipedia, other media, of all varieties, and it has been kind of made legendary that my father was born in a town called Esterville, Iowa. Fascinating place. To this day, it's kind of frozen in time. My sister made a beautiful documentary about when my father first started. Well, I first started noticing, because I spent a tiny little bit, equal amount of time with my father, in the last couple of decades. And it started with like Post-it notes, like, remember to take those vitamins and you got to call Victoria tomorrow. And then it was like more Post-its. Anyway, where the hell was I going with that? My sister, right? Yeah. And so, she's always been a phone call away from me, when I needed it most. And we didn't utilize that, or I didn't, for so many years, because it was a very It was a very challenging time for the entire family. I had, unfortunately, I was married in 1987 for 5 years, like legitimately to a beautiful woman. Um, and during that time, I met, okay, I've had five loves of my life and one great love of my life. And this is like way sidelong. I'll keep it unnecessarily and uninterestingly probably brief. Um, and that was connected to what happened with that lovely side of my family. First love of my life, John Brockelmans. He was an amazing man in high school, and we had to keep a secret love affair. And we fell madly in love in Paris and traveled through Western Europe. That is actually the last chapter I threw in the book, and it's a beautiful chapter, and it made it 10 chapters. That is what made it 10 chapters. So I've loved, John Brockmans, and then a lovely, lovely young man named Peter. I don't want to mention that full name because he is still alive and he may not want me to do that. John has since passed. So Peter, then Tim, of course, who has, mentions, significant mention in the book. You all know he was my lover, first of two, who passed away in the late 80s of HIV-related complications. So that's that, and his brother, who, we also fell in love, like the trauma bond kind of love. So then he died of HIV-related complications, and that's just a sidelong. Then, of course, my Michael, and when he wrote me that parking ticket that night while I was doing work for the county with a clipboard, that just completely, changed the entire trajectory of my life, and here I am. Point being, there was challenges at a very critical time in both of our lives, my sister and I. And I was basically off the rails. I was off the chain because I was in love with a man that I knew was dying, and all of what you can imagine goes with a 20-year-old, two 20-year-olds falling in love in 1988, but an entire generation is being decimated, and you know that you just fell in love for the first time and you're gonna die, without fail. So this was a very challenging time. It was also a very formative year and years for my sister, who was busy working, who was busy, being a part of a family, who was busy becoming an excellent student, who was busy working. And here I am, I've quit the industry. I'm half blind with rage against life because of the deaths, and I lost my career for several reasons, which we will go into at some point, probably in the second book. So very, very tumultuous time for me. Very tumultuous time for me. Death, careers, families falling apart, not having anybody until my beloved Michael came into my life. There's an old movie called The Lost Weekend. From the time that Johnny died, who was Tim's brother, to the time that I met my husband, that I've been with for going on now 33 years after our last anniversary, there was a lost weekend. Let me just put it that way. But it lasted for, a significant amount of time. So all of this is going on. I mean, non-perfect storm, like tidal wave. And my sister, in her formative years, is juggling, the understanding of family, even though she saved me and our family. And that's another story, because I was a lost soul in a divorced family with my father, who was not well equipped to be a parent, especially alone. And, he meets this beautiful woman, and then they have a beautiful child, and then I start learning, wow, families are real. Like, they're not the lower depths of hell. And then I had the privilege of raising my sister at a very early age. I saw her first put 2 blocks together to step up to get juice. I, I just saw all of these landmark moments, but very early. And then as the years progressed, and as she pursued her career and committed to a life of entertainment and of giving, creativity, I'm like spinning out of control, doing donuts, in a parking lot, just like forever donuts at 300 miles an hour. And so I'm dizzy, like I'm vertigoed, and my life is vertigoed. And I lost touch. And I'll never forgive myself. And I have such, not regret, I have such regret that I allowed all of that fracas. It wasn't a short amount of time. It wasn't, but it was several years as opposed to a lifetime. And I'm not saying I was self-indulgent, in doing what I did, because what I did was very honorable, it was necessary. And, to be young and love and care and heal and die. But it was a perfect storm. It would dovetail with too many things. And I allowed myself to lose track with my beloved sister for way too long. And she tried, and her mother tried. Her mother would give me pamphlets about different colleges I could go to. And I just ignore it. And I went on with that path of it. I didn't know I was going to talk about this, man. So, all these years, and it's really my fault in the long run. I'm not about guilt and fault, but I let go of such a chunk of my life, and I lost my sister for a while. In the meantime, and that was a drag. It was more than a drag. We have now come together because I was always a phone call away. So we've, excuse me. So we've come together, in a way, in an unfortunately irreparable way, because of all of the disconnect that I allowed to occur. And now, we're on, I can't say on good terms because we were never on bad terms, but we are dovetailing again. And she's a beautiful woman. And I am recalling things like, you need to remember things about Sully and Moon Frye. She is just not some fly-by-night child actress, okay? My sister was given the cross to bear of just saying no. So if you don't know what that means, Google it, please. But my sister was literally chosen out of the world population by Nancy Reagan. Google, please. And basically Nancy Reagan said, okay, you beautiful child who is popular, here, tell people to not take drugs and make them under 18. No, 16, 13, whatever. But I'm Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan, Google it. But my sister now traveling the country, carrying the weight of a massive public campaign about not taking substances, with basically Nancy Reagan coordinating it. Okay, so can you imagine? And then moving on with her career, and which is not easy, especially after being a wildly popular, in perpetuity, being Punky Brewster. And then the transition of having to go from a certain age actor to another age actor, and then she was successful. She had her own series with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I can't remember her name. And she did voiceover. She made movies. She directed 3 films. And I was always a phone call away. Tim, I promised you a happy show tonight. So it's lovely and it's good and it's all it needed to be now. And so what? I'm 58. I'm going to be 59 in September. And life is, we all know it's too short to begin with. So, carpe diem, man. And so that's that. So that's uplifting. It is actually, because there was heartbreak, but then it did not become heartbreak. What else can I tell you? There was things. I talked about adding the new chapter about my first love. I mentioned in the teaser that the reason I don't get into my life with my husband and my beloved son, who's now going to be 22, who I held as he came out, cut his cord, gave him his first feeding. He was not just handed to me, okay? Us, but me, because I was like the one. He was a complicated breech cesarean, and there weren't enough staffing in the room. So it was basically me, the nurse, and the doctor looking at a breech cesarean, and he was gray. So we sort of, all three of us, threw him in the corner under the hot light and massaged him back to life. He was not an ICU case, but it was precarious. And we had a relationship with the birth mother, and it was normal, and it was arranged, and it was semi-open, but she went on with her life, and of course I had my universe. So, point being, I have a picture I posted recently. Anyway, I love that kid more than anything. We came to Tucson. I left the life in LA. It was a massive, massive culture shock coming here. I was born and raised in Hollywood. I tore the town up in 16 different pieces by the time I could drive. My son was, a statewide vocalist champion, a soloist champion, singer, chorus, choir, not chorus, that's like chorus girls. He was a soloist with Ziggy Marley at the Roxy on Sunset. Scheduled, not like impromptu. Like he was the designated soloist out of a small handful of children from the same choir, and he, soloed with Ziggy Marley. I don't even know that he quite understands the whole kind of subtext of that awesomeness, but he did. He had 8 years of dance straight. 4 ballet, 4 modern. By 12, 11 or 12. I don't even say his name, I share loveliness about him, but anything else in general, particularly with my son and the circumstances with which I was, with my son was brought into my life, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was good. It was all good. And, we've had our bumps in the road for sure, but we're still living in the same house. We're still loving in the same directions. And we've, grown apart, come back, we moved, he grew, things happen. So that's where we're at. I had I have a tumor in my brain, but it is a tiny little benign thing the size of a pea. And all that is required now is monitoring and observation. I also have some kind of strange vertigo that can't be pinpointed, but vertigo is not going to kill me. I did smoke for 37 years, so there's always that. But I've been scanned and stuff. And how is this uplifting? I guess it is actually, because these are all, good health news and family news, and so actually I guess it is. I keep covering this up, and you know what this is actually? I talked about Tim and John, right? Love of my lives that passed away, right? So my son the other day, he needed like a chain for something, to wear, like a neck chain. So I went to my like little sacred box, where I have all my like, chains and rings and little things from childhood. I opened it up and this fell out. This. These are little trinkets. This is not a Star of David. It's like a Tibetan related thing. And this is a little amulet that my surrogate mother mentor, who I will, probably devote an episode to, an uplifting, lovely episode. This is an amulet. It's an amulet. And so when I could not find the chain for my son, I offered this chain, and it was too small. It wouldn't work because what he was putting on it was not for this chain. But I opened the locket that I had not ever seen since I created this locket. And this, if you can see, is Tim on the left and Johnny on the right. And that was my life from 1988 until 1991, which is all that I had with them. And then he passed in my arms, and he passed in my arms. And then 1991 happened, and I was like completely short-circuited, comprehensively short-circuited. Okay, we're half an hour. Won't keep it very, very much longer. So my life short-circuited, and then there was that lost weekend period, which, I'll just relegate to that term, lost weekend, which we can deep dive into so many areas of my life, kids. It's like the one thing I don't worry about this channel, should it survive very long, is that there's never a absence or need for more information or tidbits or life experiences, because there are just a lot of them, and I just have a lot of them. I don't know where I was going to say next. I'm here. I'm enjoying this tremendously. Like I said, the numbers, the numbers are the numbers. We've been safely doing my TV, No Holds Barred TV, subtext, Robin Hood Diaries, for just shy of a week now, I think, 6 days. And we are up to, I believe, 6,400 views in 6 days, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what any of that means, much less viral. And I know that's way 150th of viral. But, and again, that's never going to be the point. And it is always going to sound weird to you, because I am now not like a cult. I'm not hypnotizing you or any of that. I'm telling you honestly, you are this screen, okay? But I feel very close to this screen. Hence I talk to you, and I know it feels like I'm talking to a bot, but you are out there, but I'm talking to a bot essentially, right? That just happens to be getting through to you. But the difference is I know it's getting through to you, and I don't care about the bot. That's why I'm always like, ooh, can I say Daisy? Is that So that's really why I did this. Yes, I wrote a book. And yes, I would love to share that story with so many people. And I'm not like, buy my book because I'm poor. Because yes, it is going to be the cost of the book. It's going to be priority mailing, which is like $10. There's going to be handling, gas to get to UPS to do whatever, which is, I don't know, probably going to be $5. And then there is, going to be an appreciated donation towards the 16 million thousand, medical bills we've incurred, which have been, noted on Facebook for quite some time. And they cost. And, I think it averages out to kind of like a $9 donation on average, maybe, that we get towards that, which is a complete donation. I do not own a 501c3. I'm, I don't know, goodwill. I'm doing this out of the goodwill of my heart. And I, more than anything, want to share this story. If it means something to you, then I am like happy, happy, happy. If, your brain dismisses it because it's not relatable, then I hope you didn't buy it. Or if you did, then I don't know. I liked the book, and being like $1 million grant writer over whatever years, I was so critical of my work. Like I didn't like anything, even when I won the grant, like $100,000 grant for whatever. It just wasn't the same. And I needed to get this book out for 20 years. Like the post-its I always talk about in my brain and why it didn't happen, because I can't, sit and type, and I can't like think a certain way. Because I'm over the top, remember, I'm too much. And I don't say that in a bitter way. If anything, I say it in a humored way, not humorous, but implying I am humored. And that's about it. I'm just kidding. So, I do this thing about why I do the show, and I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not justifying the show. Knowing me, I'd probably do the show if no one watched. And, I love being able to bring my sister into it because she's a goddess. Bring my husband into it because he saved my life. Bring John into it because he was the first love. And I have a whole chapter of like Nirvana in Paris at 15, falling in love at 15, on Bastille Day in a hotel by ourselves, because we traveled Europe for the summer alone by ourselves at 15. Like a lot of countries. Oh my God. There's that. And that's lovely. That's a lovely chapter that I threw in there literally the day I did the first show. I had finished that chapter hours before and plugged it in to the dimensions, the sort of manuscript that you have to assemble in order to get a vanity press. And it is going to be a vanity press, and you know that. Robin Hood Press. Only thing on the back, Robin Hood Press, that picture of me, which what is being covered is like my $1 million headshot. In other words, that was the headshot. I mean, that was like the headshot commercially. That was like the moneymaker. But of course, it is emblazoned with red across because it's about a certain theme and a certain story specifically. So there is that adjunct, there's a book. I guess I'll leave you with this, or sort of. The book and the channel are kind of incidental to each other, because the book was this passionate 20-year thing that I finally realized, wow, I can write this in the toilet on this S21 Samsung. And I did. I didn't buy the computer. I didn't buy the zip drive. I didn't buy this. I didn't do this. I didn't have to set myself up for writing a book. I just absolutely had to do it. You have to throw up. And I got to that critical mass. I was not on the toilet. I was in the bathroom like I am now. And I wrote that book in a month. And it was like bathroom breaks. Not in this one. And that's it. A little eating. I don't drink anything but water. I just drink water all the time. And there you go. That's your book. And I, like I said, I'm very self-critical. I was as a grant writer. And I really like this book. Maybe because it tells what I wanted it to tell the way I wanted it to be told. And then that was so accurate that it blew my mind or something. Maybe that's why I liked it. But if I like it, somebody else has got to really get something out of it. I either get split. I get reviews from like a friend I haven't seen, an acquaintance, literally the checker at Dollar Tree, literally all that kind of person. I didn't have much money to make copies, but what little I did, I gave away. And, there was that element of knowing that sometimes what the lady at Dollar Tree thinks of your book, which is like, oh my God, there was this, and oh my God, and somebody that you might give to in the industry. I'm not going to get into agendas and slashing and burning and making a bonfire out of Hollywood yet. But there's always that sort of need to, I don't know. I mean, and I'm also, I don't want to go on about this, but I struggle because the ET, and I don't even want to call it a franchise, but I don't know what else to call it. It is a franchise at a certain point. It is a franchise. It is commodified. But I have to share what happened. I really do. I mean, I really, really do. And I'd like you to read the book to share that with me. But literally, it was putting the ink on the paper, not the expensive paper that I guess it made people make a career out of putting pen to paper. But this was my fingers to keys. And it came out the back end, and so these sets of people really dig it. Certain sets don't not like it. Nobody doesn't like it. They give me, whoever they are, will give me some very sort of tepid feedback and very brief and cryptic. Or I do not ever hear from that person again, or I do not hear about the book from any of that person, those people again. It just like it never happened. It is a powerful book. There's a gut punch at the very end. The last chapter is like just is very impactful, as is the whole book. The epilogue is sort of like throwing yourself off a cliff, like, oh my God, you're kidding. And there's lots of books ahead. I have a Christmas release, praying for a Christmas release of something that's already, formatting literally in my head that is going to be very funny, very entertaining, about wild stuff like I mentioned, being a bouncer at a gay bar and doing own sex. Own sex, or like owning a sexton, a horse. I don't know the standards of it very well, but all these, civilian, interesting more way than interesting otherwise. I will never try to tell you anything that is not at the very least interesting. And the good thing about the second book is that since it has a themed format, which I'm not going to give away, it allows for a lot of industry jobs. So, gay bar bouncer is a job. Telephone oldest profession in the world. You know what that is, but on the phone. That was like my first job out of the gate when my precious ones died. So that's weird that I was doing that after that. So it's going to be stuff like that. I'm going to weave in like E.T. and movie stuff because of the context of it being sort of a job-related funny book. And then throw the other like, what? Like bouncer, like you type things. So it is actually going to be, because I like to laugh. I like to be funny. My husband gets my best material, guys. If you assume that maybe I'm really funny, you should see my husband and I when I turn on my routine accidentally and I get on a topic, let's say Catholicism. I was a baptized Roman Catholic, but I am way not a Roman Catholic by any continent stretch. I am spiritual, and I won't sort of, lean into the what kind of area of spirituality. It is not Christian, it is not Catholic, and it is not along those lines. And where in the frig was I going with being Catholic? Oh, so, he gets my best material. That's the bottom line. And it is so fun. Over the past month, we had maybe 2 or 3 like 2-hour comedy routines. Of course, it was doing them, but me. And he's my best audience because I've said for decades, music to my ears is not whatever you can think of. It's not Mozart. It's making my husband laugh, like really, really laugh, like belly laugh. That noise to me, and knowing that I'm doing that to him, that I'm so funny, that even as a relatively serious, pragmatic person, I have to be careful because his condition with his very severe COPD is triggered by things like stress or exertion suddenly. And we have come a couple times to a borderline episode just because we were on the floor gagging and heaving from my little routine. And I hope I can make you laugh that much that I was those couple of times over the past month, or do something, because you're giving me some. I know this sounds like an infomercial. Anyway, you're giving me something. You're giving me a lot right now in this time in my life. And you're not a therapist. You're not my therapist. You're not responsible for my mental health. But I just need, and enjoy doing this right now. And I hope there's maybe a part of one of you that feels the same way. And isn't that kind of what I promised in the teaser? I think it was. And where are we at? Oh my God. Dudes, we're at close to an hour again. I'm so sorry. I really wanted to keep this like 30 minutes maximum, and I failed you. So, but I love you guys. I love at least this box being able to get to you, however many of you there are. So I'm going to end it there. I have to pick up the phone because I'm no techie, because I don't have any tripod. I'm going to bring it to myself because someone told me I really need to keep things eye level, and I have happy eyes that have given me all kinds of wrinkles over the years from lots of smiling, kid. Smile, kid. What was it they used to say? Sparkle, damn it. I'm kidding. I love you guys. Hey, I'm looking forward to the teaser for tomorrow night's show. How many tapings can I look forward to? Okay. So as usual, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.